Did any ships go through since the blockage from the US? Ships have gone through. Ships have gone through. However, people are going to tell me so much false shit. The truth is, it's very hard to tell what actually happened. If you ask US CENTCOM, they'll say the blockade is held. Others will say that many ships have gone through. The truth is that it's very difficult to know the facts. Because the ships that are trying to get through turn off their transponder. What I can tell you is I have a fucking thing here. I've been tracking it. And I think the blockade, it does seem to be holding, actually. I have this, where you can see all the fucking ships. This is such an incredible website, by the way. It makes you marvel at the connectedness of our global economy. It truly is crazy. Just every day, 24/7, tens of thousands of ships are traveling all over the world to move goods everywhere. Things that are made here. It's crazy. It really is a marvel. If you go to the fucking Strait, I picked a specific ship last night to see what'll happen because people were saying this ship is proof that Iran can just go through the blockade and no one cares. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch this ship to see if that's proof. This is the ship Golban, an Iranian ship that went from an Iranian port filled with Iranian oil. And I watched it last night before I went to bed. And it goes from here, it goes out, it goes out. It was here, I took a screenshot and I was like, all right, it seems to be working. And then I checked this morning and it's still here. Wait, I think it actually is, it's farther, but it's here. It stopped here. So it hasn't actually gone out. Again, it's not, the blockade is like ships in this area. The ships are here. So it hasn't actually gone out. It's been frozen here. And it was supposed to be on a different path. Like it should be out here going to China by now. So it does seem to me like the ships are stopping. And there are ships like it's the Starry something, was a public Iranian oil ship that got turned around. It goes here and turned around. So I'm not seeing strong evidence that a ship has just openly flouted the blockade and sailed through. Rich Starry got turned around. Now, here's the thing. Ships that have not originated from an Iranian port have gone through. And smaller ships that aren't tracked have gone through. But a large tanker from an Iranian port with Iranian oil, I haven't seen that go through. And I was following last night. I wanted to know what the fucking facts on the ground were. Now, I know there's dark fleet ships that don't have their transponders on that apparently have like tried tactics like sending two at once in different directions and shit. Like there's shit that's been apparently happening, but like a public flagged ship, I haven't seen it go through. And that's the facts. This is the ship I tracked. And this ship has been stuck here all night. It stopped at the edge. What about ship-to-ship transfers? That's also happening. Again, this is the Strait of Malacca. Some ships were captured in the Strait of Malacca doing ship-to-ship transfers, where a ship gets out of the Gulf with Iranian oil, then goes out here and transfers to a different ship with a different flag that can pass freely. Like there's a lot of like dark fleet blockade running type shit, okay? And so there was some captures there for that. I mean, you know, I think the facts on the waves are tough to fully get now. But I will say that I'm trying my best to see if there's actually like people just ignoring the blockade, and I don't think that's happening. I think the second blockade is real as the first blockade, which means ship traffic has got to be relatively low. There was talks today of Iran being open to the idea, apparently, of an agreement where they maintain their toll and their ownership of this water, but not claiming this, which means you could still go through, which is weird to me, which seems like a back down, because if this were open, people would just take it and not use this. I don't know. It remains to be seen, bro. It remains to be seen. I'm watching. I'm gonna have a bigger update. But I will say that I very much want to know what'll happen. And so I've been following it pretty closely and watching ships headed to China and Iranian ships to see what's holding. It is crazy. All these ships are fucking stuck there. All these ships are stuck there. They all want to get out, which is why Doug proposed the best idea, which is cutting a massive canal here so the ships can get to the Caspian Sea, and then cutting a massive canal here so we can get to the Sea of Japan. A truly brilliant idea that'll help global commerce a lot, okay? The Freedom Canal, right through Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Upper China, I'm sure that, and Upper China again, maybe through North Korea as well. We'll call it the Canal of America. Oh, search party. Wait, this looks great. Ghost ships. First party's pretty good, and I'm interested. Also, I want to know more about this because, like I said, I've been monitoring the situation, monitoring the public ships through the straits, and they haven't gone through the blockade. But I heard that the Ghost Fleet, the Shadow Fleet, has been going through the strait. A ton of them. A ton of them have gone through the blockade, so I'm trying to get a better picture.
By the next day, no ship risked going through the strait, except for an odd few. The Hilda 1 turned off its location responder, then reappeared on the other side.
You gotta respect the balls on the guy on the Hilda. The first guy to be like, fuck this is good. He could just tell this war was gonna last a while. He's like, I'm not getting stuck in here for the next fucking months to years, bro. I'm going for it. I'm gonna run it day one. I got shit to do. I'm gonna make some bank.
So what makes the Shadow Fleet so effective? And how is it taking advantage of all the chaos in the Middle East?
I'll pause. The reason the Shadow Fleet is so effective is because every country in the world wants fucking oil and they don't care. They want the cheapest oil they can get. It's like trying to ban oil tankers from sailing from one country to another, regardless of whatever sanction you put on it. It's like trying to say, let's make drugs illegal. That'll solve the problem. It's an endless battle. The demand is so absurdly high. You know what I'm saying? It's like, of course, they all want oil. The hunger for oil is so massive that if you have it, you can't stop it. It will find a way. You know, like prohibition of alcohol. Exactly.
Sanctions led major ports to block ships flagged by North Korea and Iran, or whose transponders showed they'd been there.
I wonder if they just changed the flag. I wonder if they just change the flag, fake the transponder, and sell the same shit that everyone wants.
So North Korean ships began turning off their transponders before entering Chinese ports, or out to sea to transfer their cargo to another ship.
Yeah, the ship transfers.
They also began switching their North Korean flags to so-called flags of convenience.
That's meant going to flags like Cameroon, Cook Islands, Gabon, finding flag states that operate privately and don't have much scrutiny or technical
It's so funny to be like, wow, Gabon sure is sending us millions of barrels of oil. I don't know where this tiny nation got it, but damn, they must have struck it rich.
By the late 2010s, the Shadow Fleet consisted of a few dozen vessels, mostly exporting Iranian oil to China. When Venezuela was hit with US sanctions, it added ships. Then a few stateless ships joined too. Crews developed more tricks like spoofing their locations and changing flags, names, even paint colors mid-journey. While shadow vessels make themselves very hard to find,
beast.
they do occasionally...
Changing the paint colors, like, you don't even have to do that, bro. That's for the love of the game.
While shadow vessels make themselves very hard to find, they do occasionally turn on their transponders.
Yeah, that's like Lord of War, dude. That's the Lord of War scene. That's a great scene. Wait, who's got the Lord of War scene, bro? I gotta watch it. I gotta watch that in the middle here.
Sometimes I made the deals so convoluted, it was hard for me to work out if they were on the level. To keep authorities in the dark, I often spoke in code. Rocket launchers were mothers, the rockets children. The AK-47 assault rifle was the Angel King.
It's Yuri.
The Angel King is a terrible code name. If anyone is overhearing, it sounds so obviously weird and strange. Like, you should be like, hey, we're delivering the fucking crates or the peanuts or whatever, something. Say I'm delivering the Angel King is like, okay, the Angel King 47. They'll never crack this code. Clutch. Don't label it M16 or underneath the potatoes. But it's cinema, dude. It's a great movie. So I assume that's what the Shadow Fleet is doing, but with oil. Okay, they're hiding it under bags of potatoes. And Ethan Hawke is going aboard and constantly being confused by these Iranian ships with different flags. I assume that's where we're at.
In a report by Vortexa, the Shadow Fleet included around 200 vessels in early 2022. But just 1 year later, it jumped to over 1,000.
Sheesh.
Most belong to Russia. After invading Ukraine, Vladimir Putin's regime was hit with US and EU sanctions. So it bought hundreds of aging tankers and ran the Shadow Fleet playbook to keep its oil moving.
Nope, we sanctioned them and then they fell out of the global economy. Instant loss. There's something they could do. They had oil, but no one to sell it to.
Mostly to buyers in China and India. By late 2025, this growing shadow fleet was carrying around
The
11
greatest thing we did to hurt Russia's income was pump a lot of oil out of the fucking Permian Basin in Texas and get oil prices cheap. And the worst thing we did for Russia's income, the best thing we did for help Russia's income is fucking start a stupid war in Iran that closed the Strait of Hormuz and doubled oil prices. That has made Russia hundreds of millions more dollars per day the entire length of this war. The sanctions are not nothing, but they're so overrated in terms of what for oil countries.
All ships have what's called the right of innocent passage under the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Seas, which has allowed, especially in the case of Russia.
We have innocent until proven guilty, but for boats. That's kind of beast. That's kind of beast. The secondary sanctions? No, dude. They get around those too. Fucking European shit that couldn't be sold to Russia, guess what? It all gets sent to Kazakhstan. Suddenly Kazakhstan's importing a whole fuck ton of computer chips and washing machines and cars that they weren't importing before. People don't think of the second order effect. The demand is still there.
On
These
Christmas Day,
consequences,
2024.
they're unintended. Are these consequences in the room with us right now? Listen, bucko, when we make a plan, it will work exactly like we think, and there will be no unintended consequences.
I've spoken to people who are in a position to know that yes, spying equipment has been found on these vessels, and there are now security guards on vessels linked to the former paramilitary group Wagner. So the blurring of commercial and military.
Yes, Wagner is the paramilitary group under the guy, I'm not bringing his name, the guy who did a coup against Putin, then stopped halfway through, then rejoined Putin, and then died like a month later in a plane crash. Prigozhin. Yeah, Prigozhin, dude. What a misplay. You're gonna have to do a coup against Putin and think it's gonna be all chill? That's crazy.
Around 2024, the West ramped up sanctions not on countries, but on ships. A lot of ships. At least 1,304 vessels have been sanctioned by at least one of these governments, which makes them riskier to do business with.
It made the oil harder to sell, meant that the oil producers, they set up a few more sock puppet companies in order to evade those sanctions and to develop the workaround.
Oh my God, it's so ineffective, it's crazy. This idea is so played out, bro. Wow, they had to make more sock puppet companies. They had to call them Angel Kings.
So the US and EU pressured flag of convenience states to unflag sanctioned vessels, making them stateless. This was a game changer, because under international law, a ship suspected of being stateless can be boarded.
U.S. forces seizing an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela.
Yeah, and that'll work at first, and then likely the fucking companies will bribe somebody in one of these countries. They'll use the money to bribe somebody to be able to get access to the flag. And then they got it again.
In early 2026, the US, France, and even India seized stateless vessels. Then the US and EU announced sanctions that led some countries to buy less Russian oil. Meanwhile, Ukraine went even further.
Ukrainian sea drones launched their attack on.
This is 50 times more effective than any sanction, what Ukraine is doing. They're just blowing up the actual oil tankers because they are in an open war where Russia's invading their territory. The sea drones are actually working. It is actually making it difficult. The costs of repairs are eating into the profits from the oil.
Ukraine has hammered Russia's Baltic ports, halting some oil exports.
By February 2026, Russian oil revenue was falling, and Iran was selling its oil for bargain prices.
Oh, it was working, bro. It was working, and then someone had to go and fuck it up. Oh, hopefully there's some 6D chess about to happen.
Right up until the US and Israel attacked Iran, and Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. While the strait was closed, the price of the oil inside every tanker rose dramatically. But by letting mainly shadow vessels through, Iran made sure it was mainly shadow vessels that could profit from it. Now Russia and Iran are again exporting a lot of oil. According to the FT, Russia made more than $150 million a day in extra revenue,
Great.
while Iran likely made more than $140 million a day.
There's all sorts of small ways to chip away at the problem, but ultimately it lies with improving regulation at the international level.
While the West struggles to fight the shadow,
I'm sorry, man, but no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. There's no magic different regulation that is going to change the fact that there is a barrel of oil coming out of the ground in Iran that people want. It's just the demand is global. They all want it. And so there will be solutions found to get that out. And so you have to think of something better, bro. You have to think of something better.
The war in Iran proved it to be even more useful and more valuable than ever.
All right, thanks so much for watching another episode.
Well, that was a solid video, but I am a little annoyed at the part after the blockade was like 30 seconds. The title implies that there's Shadow Fleet running the blockade right now, and they really just talked about what the Shadow Fleet was for 12 minutes, and then they're like, yeah, also there's a blockade recently, which they do instead of sanction. You can sanction like they were doing before, but the reason they were making less money is because the supply of oil was so gargantuan at the same time as people are slowly but surely getting off of oil, that they weren't able to, they were selling it for rock bottom prices. So they weren't profiting very much. If you limit the supply of oil, it makes their oil 100 times more valuable. You make them tons more money. It's like, if your only goal was to destroy the cartels, here's a perfect example. If you're like, we have to destroy the Mexican cartels. If you really want to destroy them, the only way, I'm not saying you should do this, but you would you would put cocaine, you would give Walmart the ability to make cocaine, okay? You would put it in every store. You would legalize it. If you did that, the cartels would be destroyed in 2 seconds. The supply of it would cut out no one would want to do business with them. You flood the market. And because oil is not cocaine, that was working. But the restriction of it is only helping Russia. Wouldn't Walmart buy from them because they have the expertise? Like in a transitionary period for a fucking brief minute. But the corporate machine would outproduce them so quickly. The supply chain they would build would have no need for any of the cartel experience in like a fucking very short amount of time. You think Walmart stuff would be fire? Nah, I think it'd be stepped on, bro. I think Walmart shit would be fucking, but it'd be cheap.